them 30 years to come up with a study that showed any correlation between taking statins and a reduction in coronary heart disease. They didn't have any data. They so didn't have any data that on their advertisements they had to state outright that there's no correlation for it, there's no relationship between taking Lipitor and a reduction in coronary heart disease. It took them until 2005. I think it was the Jupiter study, and the Jupiter study has also been until they found a population group, and it was diabetics with high blood pressure who take Lipitor have reduced rates of coronary heart disease. So they found somebody, and now they can say on their Lipitor ads that certain populations will experience lowered rates of heart disease from taking these drugs.
So what kind of data do they use so they can prescribe this for you?
There is no data.
My patient should be up there because I was just prescribed Lipitor.
They gave your doctor a pen that says Lipitor.
It's, seriously, this is a myth. I'm telling you, this is a myth. And I started with some of the other myths that aren't so ubiquitous and aren't so, like hardcore locked into our society. This is made up, folks. And there's plenty of people on the other side of this argument, obviously. Okay? And more people are coming around to the realization that the data behind it is very sketchy to begin with. But the other thing that's going on here is that we're seeing a whole host of negative health side effects from people who are artificially lowering their cholesterol over extended periods of time, including increases in overall mortality, including increases in cancer rates, including increases in strokes, including increases in violent behavior and depression and suicidal behavior. So they're starting to come out with, one of the sites that I'll send you links for is a site called Science for Health Blogspot, I believe. This guy has done a fabulous, really incredible job of compiling an immense amount of material. And we start looking through the cholesterol links. He has 47 different subheadings for cholesterol. Cholesterol and heart disease, cholesterol and diabetes, cholesterol and this and cholesterol and that, cholesterol and vitamin D, bam, 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 cholesterol and longevity. One of the best books that's out there is by a man named Ravenscough. And again, I'll send you all this information. And it's called The Cholesterol Myths. And he goes through them one at a time. There's 8 major ones associated with cholesterol. But he starts with this idea that cholesterol is positively associated with negative health outcomes, coronary heart disease, and so on and so forth. And he goes on to these other myths that I've touched on, that like eating cholesterol has anything to do with your blood cholesterol, that high cholesterol levels have anything to do with the amount of arterial plaque that gets built up in your body, which is an entirely different process, has nothing to do with the amount of blood cholesterol that's in your body. So they have some lovely studies that have been done, and the bottom line here is that cholesterol does not cause heart disease, and that's maybe all I need to say at some level. So there's a study: higher cholesterol levels the longer you live. Compared with women whose cholesterol was 193, those with the readings of 270 or more. Okay, and 270, they're like wanting to send you to the hospital or something, right? These days, okay? Enjoyed a 28% reduction in death, overall mortality. Men, it was only 11, sorry guys. Compared with women whose cholesterol was under 193, with women whose cholesterol is over 270, enjoyed a 26% reduction of cardiovascular diseases. For men, it was 20%. Okay, we're talking this is published in the Journal of Evaluation in Clinical Practice, 25 September 2011. Let me just see how many people we're talking about. 52,000 people aged 20 to 74 over a 10-year period.
That's a huge study.
Okay, they're getting robust data now. They're not getting they're looking at somebody for 6 months. They're getting real serious data about this now. It's stroke. It's heart disease, it's cancer. All of these things go up when your cholesterol goes down.
There
Who knew?
are doctors who want to put statins in our water.
Oh my God. There's doctors who want to put fluoride in our water.
Well, let's talk about the amount of income that's been generated.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We're talking we're talking billions of dollars, and maybe hundreds of billions of dollars that we're speaking to with the testing associated with it, with the education associated with it, with the lifelong use of these statin drugs, which are the #1 selling drugs in the world.
Yep.
All right, one more study. 12,000 adults, 40 to 69 years old. Those with cholesterol under 160 had a 50% higher death rate than those with cholesterol over 200. So really seriously, don't let your cholesterol go down to those kind of levels. And if you've got cholesterol at 250 and your doctor's telling you you're in trouble, just pass him some information. Say, please read this. Tell me what you think. Because we have to start having the conversations with our doctors on some kind of even footing about this, because they have been misled. They have been completely misled and have bought into it for a long period of time. So it's not turning around overnight, but you really do have to go and educate yourself. You have to look at these studies. You have to have them in hand and present them to your doctor when you go and he says your cholesterol is 250. We've got to put you on statins right away.
But when you've been misled and made a lot of money from it, what is the incentive of not being misled?
Humanity, dude.
I know. That seems to be a weak.
No. Most doctors want to do what's right. Even the doctors that are trying to pay for medical school and trying to pay, their debts and so on and so forth, if they are forced to look at it, they're going to try to do the right thing.
I heard that their average age is only 56. They don't even live very long.
No, doctors are the most addicted demographic group in the country, and they're one of the least longest lived demographic groups in the country. It has everything to do with stress. It has everything to do with all kinds of things. But access to drugs is a big one for the addicted aspect of it.
It looks like this ad is to scare you whether you're in shape or fat.
Oh yes, that's exactly right. So risk of death in lowest cholesterol group for hemorrhagic stroke, heart failure, and cancer mortality was significantly higher than those of the moderate cholesterol group for each of those causes of death. So there's no shortage of studies around on the other side of this issue, okay? You got 31,000 autopsies looking from 15 countries, no correlation between animal fat intake and degree of atherosclerosis or serum cholesterol level. You've got 31,000 autopsies. You can't do any better than that. You can measure exactly what's in the arteries. No relationship between serum cholesterol and what's in the arteries. 1,700 patients with atherosclerosis. No relation between level of serum cholesterol and degree of hardening of the arteries. Minnesota State Hospital trial. No difference in coronary heart disease between controls and group on diet that lowered cholesterol. Honolulu Heart, Puerto Rico Heart Health Study. No significant differences between fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol intakes of persons with and without coronary heart disease.
You have a typo, correct? Cholesterol in there at the bottom.
Cholesterol, oh, thank you. Cholesterol, thank you. So yes, if you want to read one book about this that's got the most data of any book I've seen, get this one, The Cholesterol Myth. Serious. That's the one. It's hard to find. It's out of print. But maybe there's a few running around that are mislabeled or something. It deconstructs all of these myths point by point with science, and it's just fabulous reading. All right, so a couple things. Cholesterol levels go up naturally as you get older. It's very difficult to get any kind of steady state reading on your cholesterol anyway, because it changes all the time because of all kinds of things going on with you. In men, the risk of coronary heart disease is slightly greater with levels above 300, but no appreciable difference in coronary heart disease for cholesterol levels of 180 to 300. One of the things they did to skew all the data associated with high cholesterol and heart attacks was they included the people who have familial hypercholesterolemia. It's about 1% of the population. These people have cholesterols up above 1,000, 1,300, 2,500, this kind of thing, okay? And they threw all these people, it's about 1% that's a genetic deficiency, they don't metabolize cholesterol correctly, into all of the data about everybody else. So they created a false relationship where there wasn't any relationship between the vast majority of people who have cholesterol down here around 200 to 350, which you just really seriously should not be worrying about. Women and elderly, there's no appreciable difference in coronary heart disease for any level of cholesterol. In fact, for women of all ages and the elderly, higher cholesterol is associated with a longer lifespan. This is Journal Circulation 1992. Again, there's plenty of science that debunks this whole notion that cholesterol is a problem. That cholesterol is going to give you heart disease. That cholesterol is going to cause your arteries to get hard and get all this plaque buildup. This is simply not true. Once they retire, some of these doctors have something different to say. William Castelli, Framingham study director. We found the people who ate the most cholesterol, ate the most saturated fat, ate the most calories, weighed the least, and were the most physically active. Seems a little backwards from what we're told, doesn't it? A little bit upside down from what we're typically told. You eat the most animal fat, you eat the most calories, you eat the most cholesterol, and you weigh the least, and you're the most physically active. It's because you're eating much better food. You're eating much more nutrient-dense food. It's giving your body energy. You're changing your metabolism in a positive direction when you're eating this kind of food that we're talking about, bone broths and whole foods, and not grains. After these people retire, they often will say something entirely different than they were willing to say when they were dependent upon grant money to do research. 30 years after Framingham, again, we're looking at the same data, a direct correlation between falling cholesterol levels over the first 14 years and mortality over the following 18 years. For each 1% per year drop, there was an 11% increase in total mortality and a 14% increase in coronary heart disease. That's what was in Framingham. Framingham is one of the primary pieces of data that's used to support the idea that cholesterol is bad for you, and you should be reducing it. It's like this everywhere you look about this cholesterol issue. 10-year English study, high total cholesterols had no bearing on heart disease rates. High total cholesterols were associated with 22% decrease in stroke incidence. 82,000 people. Published in 2011. Again, it just the bad news for this whole diet heart idea, cholesterol and saturated fats are bad for you, is coming, at an ever greater pace. In response to the National Cholesterol Education Program, Russell Smith said the current campaign to convince every American to change his diet, to initiate drug therapy for life is based on fabrications, erroneous interpretations, and or gross exaggerations of findings, and very importantly, the ignoring of massive amounts of unsupported data. And that's the reality. Massive amounts of unsupported data for this whole idea that cholesterol is associated with high levels of coronary heart disease and mortality. It ain't. Cholesterol, again, there's a whole host of these books. Cholesterol Conspiracy, Cholesterol Con, Cholesterol Myths. There's no shortage of books. Thick books with all of the data you want to look at. And it's really hard to hear for people who are academics, for people who are in the medical profession, people who have dedicated their lives to helping people, that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with is flat-out fabrication, flat-out misrepresentation, flat-out fraud.